Hello, everyone. Welcome to Life Out Loud. I'm Junie Moon, your host, and I am so excited to have another episode to share with you. And I have an amazing guest, and we're going to be talking about shadow today, which is, well, my favorite topic. But before we dive in, I want to give the newcomers a little glimpse into who I am and why I created Life Out Loud and why I have all these great people coming to Life Out Loud. So I am a certified shadow work facilitator and transformational coach. I help people break through patterns of behavior that continue to stop them and limit them from living the bold, amazing life that they're so meant to live. So I help people lower the inner critic voices, all those things between the ears that keep them stuck, and allow them to really soar in their life. And I do that with individuals, workshops. I travel around the country doing retreats. So if you're interested in finding out more about that work, you can go to innercritictamer.com. That's inner critic tamer, like tamer. That's what I do. And you can even pick up my ebook, How to Tame Your Inner Critic, and that's free there. And because my passion is to really help people get out of their way and have magnificent lives, I thought, what better way to do it than to bring out other people's messages as well. Transformational leaders of our time that are walking their talk, like people that I really admire and see them really making a difference in people's lives, work that matters. And so I created Life Out Loud for you so that you can hear other people's work and learn from them. And me too, because I get to hobnob with them and learn what they're doing, and we all get to go for the ride. So I created Life Out Loud. And today's guest will not disappoint you. I'm going to pull up her bio. Reverend Frankie Timmers is in the house. Frankie was born and raised in the Netherlands in a family of 9 children. Her life deeply changed when she found the perfect and right spiritual path for her in the late 70s, the Science of Mind teaching founded by Dr. Ernest Holmes. She so loved it that the studies naturally took her into ministry. She has been a spiritual director for the Centers for Spiritual Living for almost 29 years. That's how I met Frankie. I went to her center, and well, she's blown me away for many years. The last 15 years, she has also had a great passion for Sufism as well, and she practices the Sufi meditation of the heart. That sounds so beautiful. The path of Science of Mind has so deeply opened her mind, and the Sufi path has so deeply opened her heart that her life continues to blossom and thrive, and these paths have actually become one. She is very alive and feels tuned into spirit in a way that is contagious, and you will see that soon. Her life is all about celebrating who we really are, which is spirit in expression. And she takes the Science of Mind teaching and principles very seriously and herself very lightly. That's somebody that I wanted on my show. So let me pull her up on the screen. Welcome. You're on the screen. Say hi.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Junie Moon.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about what you discovered Science of Mind, but what was your life before that, and what was the impact of your teachings? I mean, just kind of give us a sense of the journey of Frankie.
Well, I had a very magical childhood, and I felt a connection with God, spirit, the universe, whatever we are impassioned to call it, from a very young age. And then I grew up in an environment that had lots of kids around, so I started to feel a little lost. And one of the ways I discovered to deal with that was to explore and to be curious. So I've always loved traveling, and I've loved exploring different religions and different spiritual practices and different facets of psychology. And that's how I, as a little Catholic girl, explored different faiths and discovered the Science of Mind when I came to the United States.
So when you discovered this path, how did it shift you, enhance you? What did this work offer to you that drew you so strongly to it compared to the path you had been on before?
It was really it had two major facets to it. The first thing that happened when I walked into a Science of Mind center was that they believed what I already thought, what I already believed, which was that there's a power within me. It's not out there somewhere and I have to earn its graces, but it's within me and it's my own mind. And the other facet of it was that I lived a life of making others responsible for my experience. And when I first heard in a Science of Mind teaching that I'm the only one responsible for my own experience, that really resonated. It was incredibly scary, but at the same time, it was a relief because I knew I didn't have to give my power away to anyone or anything outside myself. And that's a lifelong journey. I don't know if we ever completely master that.
Mm-hmm. So big difference, big difference. I always talk about that with people about, life defining us and us defining life, seeing other people's reactions and what they want of us, or societal wants of us, religious wants of us, and how that impacts us individually versus coming from the inside and our truth. So what I'm hearing is you came from a very different path and you suddenly were finding this path that resonated with you completely. I'm curious what changed for you. How did that make you feel having this very different model that you had grown up with?
It felt very challenging because there is somehow a comfort to think that my life is the way it is because of something else.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me feel empowered. It made me feel that, it made me realize that I'm a co-creator, that I create my own life experience. So it was very empowering. And at the same time, it was a feeling of, oh, wow, my mind is my greatest gift. Not my possessions, not my upbringing, not my environment, not my money, it's my mind. And I can use it. I am completely free to use it in any way I choose to. So that sense of freedom was the key for me that changed everything.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And what you just said, right before what you just said about like the impact of the responsibility being ours. And when same for me, when I thought I was at the mercy of the world or other people's wants and thoughts, for me, there was definitely, I guess, almost a comfort level because it's not my fault then. Or, I'm not responsible for what's happening, and kind of the victim mentality. And I know victim is definitely a hot word for people, but there is that, oh, I have no choice and I'm at the mercy of this. And the discomfort a little bit that I experienced as well of, wow, really? I have a choice here. I actually can change things. But the freedom that comes with it, which is what you said last, to be able to go, wait a second, I've got this like wicked tool here that I can really create my own reality and co-conspire with the universe. I mean, it's to me, makes life such an adventure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking, I switched the screens. I'm just thinking, so you wanted to talk about shadow, and we're talking about the responsibility of others. And then having this tool of our mind. Where did the shadow come into play with you and your healing work?
I would say that when I learned that I am 100% responsible for my own experience, that it called me to be more conscious. It called me to be aware of my own feelings, separate from my environment. And that was really challenging for me because I don't remember being taught to feel what I feel and to embrace my feelings and to use my own feelings as a way to explore what I think. So in a way, it was very challenging, but also it was very beautiful, because to me, it was really about becoming conscious of what I think, what I feel, what I believe, which in turn became very empowering.
Exactly. And so when we talk about shadow, for some of those that are watching may not know, well, what is this shadow thing we're talking about? Sometimes there's parts of us, whether it's belief systems, just messages that we got in the past, I mean, the way we're wired, sometimes we actually don't have access to it consciously, that we may not know why we do certain things because it's kind of behind us. It's in shadow. It's something, for whatever reason, we said we're not going to be like, or, we're going to disown that part because it's not good or okay to be a certain way. And what I'm hearing you say is, you had a dedication to being awake, and to be awake, and please correct me if I say anything that's not resonating with you, but to be awake, to be really conscious, and especially with your emotions, well, where are they coming from? Why are they here? You start to uncover all the layers and all the programming, which then puts the light on the shadow. Would you say that is what you experienced?
Yes, and most of the time we think the whole shadow work is about feelings that are not optimal. And it's really both. It's if somebody offers us a compliment and we say, that old thing, I got it at a thrift shop. It's old, or you're beautiful, and it's my makeup. It's on both sides of the spectrum, and that's why I don't like to use words like negative and positive, because I find them to be very limiting. So to expand the whole spectrum of noticing our reactions to people, places, and things, and realize that they're our reactions and that they mean something, and to really work with them.
Absolutely. And I was just saying this to you before, like if someone has a charge or gets triggered by something, whether it's a compliment or, what we think is, a criticism, if someone says something or does something and there's something inside of you that goes, there's something to look at, there's something to heal, and it might not be something you're conscious of. I'm going to pause for a second, because one of the things I want to just get clear for anybody that's watching, being that I talk about shadow work all the time, there's a lot of people working with shadow in the world. This concept that we're talking about, parts of us that we've pushed away or have disowned, positive or negative, things that we just decided we can't be, or we just feel fear around. So I just want to just kind of get clear about, I'm a certified shadow work facilitator and coach with a body of work called Shadow Work. It's a trademarked body of work, founder Cliff Berry. And so that when I say I do shadow work, that's what I do. And with that said, there's a lot of people doing shadow work, working with the shadow, transforming the shadow, putting the light on the shadow. So as we talk, I just want you to be clear about that. We're going to be saying the same things, but whatever Frankie has experienced with shadow work, which I don't even know, we're going to find out, and how I work, it could be very different and it could be very similar. But needless to say, we're going to explore that right now. But yes, what you just said is so important, that, and this is how I view it. We had an experience somewhere along the way, usually in our childhood, that we decided we couldn't be a certain way, or we couldn't feel a certain way, or couldn't explore or just show up in a certain way. And we cut off an aspect of who we are. That could be the most delicious parts of who we are, like our childlike spirit, or our creativity, or our self-worth, being able to know that we are amazing. And somewhere along the line, we got a message that said we couldn't be like that. Don't be such a show off. And we learned somewhere along the line, so if someone compliments that person, they'll be like, oh gosh, I can't believe I ventured there. So that's kind of what, Frankie was just saying, which is we cut off some really beautiful parts too. So it's not a negative or positive. It's just we've lost access to some of these things. And so we get conscious. You want to add anything to that at all?
Yeah, as I'm listening to you, I totally agree. And I'm glad you clarified the differences. I think sometimes, though, the danger can be that we become just completely self-absorbed because there's so much,
Yeah.
so much all day long, whether I'm in traffic or I'm at work or I'm tired or I'm not. So I think it's important to not make it so intense that we're constantly worried about the shadow. I think it's just about noticing it and sometimes just parking it in the back of our mind, or maybe to see the main threads instead of picking everything apart, because that can make you crazy.
Yep. In fact, when I do my shadow work workshops, one of the first things we say the first night of our weekend, after we've kind of explored what the shadow is and how do you identify it, is we tell everybody, take a breath, because you're probably thinking, oh my God, I have this in shadow and this in shadow, and it can get so overwhelming. And to really do what you just said, which is to just notice and just to stay aware. And one of the first things you said about your childhood was you were so curious. And I think it's that curiosity to kind of go, that person just said something and I noticed my stomach got all tight. What's that about? Might want to explore that. The personal growth work is such a great opportunity. And consciousness, being able to stay awake and do this work is wonderful. And I see people doing it like that sometimes. So process, allowing, being with it, and having that curiosity to just unfold in a gentle way, because white knuckling it is just adding more fuel to the fire, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So me and my shadow, I healed through shadow work. Can you give us a little deeper glimpse into what that was for you?
For me, the thing I worked with in the beginning, the first work I did was really out of Robert Johnson's work, He, She, We, from Carl Jung's works. And it had to do with discovering how incredibly judgmental I was. And what I remembered is that some of that was just happening at home. I remember my family talking about so-and-so and so-and-so and this and this. And a lot of the time it was kind of critical. So I realized that it was just a habit that was very unconscious. So I would walk around judging the way people looked, or what kind of car they drove, or how they spoke or not. And so I began to notice how much of a burden that was, how much of a burden it is to constantly walk around judging everyone and everything around and comparing. There was a comparing piece. And I'm not saying that I'm no longer judgmental. I think I still am extremely judgmental, but it has a different quality to it. Now I notice it. I'm more forgiving. I shift it more quickly. I know what it's about more quickly. I own it more quickly. And so it's not something that preoccupies me as much or takes over my entire day, because now it's about really celebrating life and celebrating our uniqueness.
Yep. The idea of it not being so much of a burden, I think that is so key, because once we're able to truly take back these parts, so the judgmental part, to be able to go and own it and say, yeah, I could be judgmental. Mine that I really had to look at was arrogance. Just kind of, being full of myself, and it would come out, and like, get off your high horse, June, and once I was able to go, okay, yeah, what's that about, and where's that coming from? Which for me was coming from a place of insecurity, a place of I have to overshoot and prove how much I know so that I can be loved and appreciated and seen as whatever I'm wanting to be seen at in that moment. Once I was able to own it and go, okay, there's that insecurity, and I certainly healed a lot of that. And then to really go, yeah, sometimes I can come across a little arrogant, and almost, I'm laughing at it right now. It doesn't have the edge about it. And sometimes I'll hear myself slip into that, little snootiness. And I'm like, oh, okay, there it is. And because I've become friends with it and have allowed it to just soften and accept it, it doesn't have the hold on me as much, which does relax me. So, you know, I hear the judgmental, and I'm sure there's so many people out there that, you know, that are thinking, oh yeah, I have this quality, or maybe you don't even know the quality. But once you're able to hone in on that and become friends with it and kind of dance with it instead of push it away and say, I'm not that, it takes a lot of energy to not be something, right? So kudos for you. So you noticed the judgmental part. You saw the history. So was it a conscious decision, or was there some tools that you used? I'm curious, how did you get to dance with it a little better and get that burden off?
I had a teacher that taught me, taught me, I call it my mantra, which is, there for the grace of God go I.
Mm-hmm.
Comes from the Bible or something.
Mm-hmm.
There for the grace of God go I. So it became an automatic little trick in my mind that when I like I might be driving in traffic and judge somebody for texting while driving, and then I'll say, there for the grace of God go I.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be honest and admit it. I sometimes text while I'm driving. So it might be the question, there for the grace of God go I. I may not do exactly what I see and what I judge, but I get to ask myself, where do I do that? Or where am I like that? Or why is the judgment so intense? What's behind it? What you were saying, just becoming aware. So there for the grace of God go I is powerful, because we're all so much more the same than we're different.
Absolutely. And when people ask me, well, how do I know what's in shadow? If it's in shadow, I don't know. And sometimes we don't. Exactly what you just said. When you start to see things out in the world that really get your goat, like really irritate you, if somebody has a behavior or a personality trait that you're just like, I just hate people that are whatever, you know, judgmental or arrogant, whatever, lazy people, like whatever title you want to put on that person. Oh, she's so childlike, you know, when is she going to grow up? Whatever it is, when you spot it in somebody else and there's a charge, most likely there's something to be healed. And that's a clue. And none of us are immune, right? We all live in glass houses. And what I love about this work is what you just sort of said is, here you are maybe judging somebody who's doing something else, and then you bring it back to yourself. You realize that there's a part of you that's like that as well. And when we start to realize that we're in a glass house and that we are like everybody else, there's such compassion for ourselves and others, and things just soften. We're just so much less edgy with everybody because we've done the healing work of accepting these edges of ourself. What do you think about that? Do you resonate with that?
Yeah, totally. I had a teacher that once said, when you spot it, you got it. That's a really good reminder. And it helps me be a little more compassionate. You know, if I judge somebody that might be overweight, and I might then have a little more compassion because I've struggled with that as well. So I can have more compassion and more patience and more understanding, knowing that there's more behind it than I might think. So it's just paying attention. And I want to be a kind and generous presence in the world. So where can I practice that? Well, it's easy to practice where it's easy. I want to practice where it's not so easy, where I can extend kindness and generosity beyond my own comfort zone.
Yep. And that wants to show up a certain way with other people, and wanting to be happy, wanting to feel peaceful. That's what we all want, right? And so when we can become more peaceful with those aspects of ourself, things flow so much more beautifully. There's something else you said. I'm trying to remember. Lost my train of thought there. I try to stay so present, and I'm like, But yeah, just this personal growth work. I mean, for most of the people that are watching this, you guys are dedicated to a happier life. You're dedicated to learning more tools and more skills, and being more gentle with yourself, and becoming more conscious of those parts of yourself that have charge. that is where the gold is. And that's where you suddenly become more accessible to all of who you are, which then allows you to resonate with that many more people and have a way more peaceful life. And can you imagine what the world would look like if cultures and countries did that work consciously? What do we have in shadow in the United States? What do we have in shadow in the individuals that are running the different countries and how they interact? How so many people are reacting out of their shadows. If we all just knew ourselves that much more, what would the conversations look like? That's something to consider. What might you add to that one?
I also think that it's about being willing to give what we want to receive. If I would like to be more loved and accepted and be more free in being who I am, as crazy or silly as I am, then I need to extend that to the world around me in order to receive it back. So it's really being an example of the world we want to create. In our teaching at Centers for Spiritual Living globally, we have a global vision this year, and it's called A World That Works for Everyone. And it's a very challenging vision because it really asks us to be instruments within our own world, and then to realize that that becomes what the world becomes. So it's really doing our part in the world by starting within.
Right, because we cannot give to someone if we don't have it ourselves. So if we want more love, then what I heard you say is then show up and give more. But we can't give if we are still in our, our shit, so to speak, if we haven't done the work. So the more we have access to our whole being and can relax and know ourselves more, then it opens us up to be able to show up more for everyone, which then allows more to come our way. I'm curious about the Sufism, opening up your heart, and the science of mind with the intellect, and how they bridge, and where the shadow fits in those two places, if it does.
I have so loved the mystical writings of Ernest Holmes, which is really his earlier writings, and I've always been drawn to mysticism. Any early teachings of any religion before it became a religion had its mystical teachings. In Judaism, that might be the Kabbalah. In Islam, it's Sufism. So with Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes really was a mystic. And that's the part I was drawn to. Even though when I first came into a Science of Mind center, the mental aspect, Science of Mind, really spoke to me because my feeling body was a bit broken and I wasn't in touch with my own feelings. But that progression shifted, and then I started to really seek for, about 15 years ago, without knowing I was seeking it, because I wasn't actively seeking it, for that mystical path, that mystical connection with spirit. And I came upon a lovely book by Llewellyn Vaughan Lee called Bond with the Beloved, that just literally fell off a bookshelf in a bookstore in front of my feet. And then I picked up a catalog for Omega at the same time. And as I was flipping through it, the week of my birthday, which is this week, he was at Omega. So I immediately signed up, and that's 15, 16 years ago. I do retreats. I read his writings. I'm part of a meditation practice, and it really works well together because it's really about knowing that spirit, the universe, God is within us, and that we're each instruments of the divine in a unique way that nobody else has. And how can we discover that, explore that, and live from that?
So with the groups and the workshops, with shadow works, sometimes we can't see some of the things that are happening, like somebody could be really, really angry and I'm not an angry person. And, they're like moving a lot of anger. sometimes we need that outside mirror. I'm just curious, who or what is your outside mirror? Do you have one? Who supports you? Because you hold the space for so many at your center, and are doing this deep work by yourself. How do you have a mirror?
Yeah, a few. More than one. I have my very best friend in the whole world who will always tell me the truth. I have my beloved Norman, who is many ways very different from me and is not afraid to speak his truth. I have several prayer partners that are colleagues, and I really use the practice of paying attention to my own feelings. So my own feeling body is a mirror for me.
Mm.
And
absolutely, yep.
Even just paying attention to what's on the news or what I see on Facebook. I think of Facebook as a spiritual practice because it can trigger you all over the place. I recently
that's a great title of a book, Facebook as a spiritual practice. Yeah. Love it. It must be written.
Yes, I've done it as a talk, and I often in my talks where I really use that because I sometimes hear people say, I have banned certain people from my friends on Facebook because I just don't want to hear it. And I personally would never do that because everybody gets to have their own point of view, their own opinion. And if it triggers me in any way, it's just grist for the mill.
Yep. Yeah. And one of the things you said about, your body being a mirror, and tying that into Facebook, when we feel anything in our body, that the tightness in our stomach or the shallow breath, or just feel the sadness, even if it's, the emotions that we might feel, we may not feel it in our physical body, but our bodies really are great tools to let us know that something's off, something is getting triggered. And yeah, Facebook, I've written about it. I haven't done a talk on it, but I've definitely written about it because you see all these people, they're here having all this fun and they're having, all of these people, and you're sitting home on a Friday night going, why didn't I get invited or something like that? And then it's like, oh wow, what's going on here? And it's such a great opportunity to check in and not go, well, I'm gonna block them, but to actually use it and come home, come home to what is really true inside.
It's funny for me because like the whole stuff on Facebook about animals, about cats and dogs, and whether it's people's cats and dogs or people are passionate about protecting animals. But when it comes to the earth, if there's, when I read things about how we're destroying the earth, that just breaks my heart. Yeah. So I think it's important for people to notice where their heart aches, because there's information there beyond the thing itself, beyond the earth or beyond the animals. And so just paying attention is really, really valuable. And sometimes it's also where people are called to share their gifts and talents. You can bitch about pollution all you want, but really the question is, how are you participating in destroying the planet? Because we all are in some way, shape, or form. And how can we then make choices where we can feel good about our part? Because nobody's going to do it perfectly. We can only do our best.
Exactly. And that whole thing, if you're pointing to somebody, ruining the planet, there's three fingers coming right back at us. Again, coming back home to, well, what's my part in it? And why is it upsetting to me? And what might I be able to do or offer or be to shift it? So again, consciousness, that's, I just keep hearing that over and over from you, which is just being really true. Like what is happening and what's going on inside, and being curious and allowing, slowing it down. I think we speed up so fast, but to actually slow down and to notice what's really happening, whether we're feeling a certain way or physically, emotionally, it's good information. And yeah, absolutely. I'm noticing the time. I want to give you an opportunity to let people know how to find you. I mean, Center for Spiritual Living is all over the place, but for those that are local, they might want to know where you are. But, talk a little bit about your work, who you are, what you do, and how people can connect with you.
If people want to find out whether there's a Center for Spiritual Living near them, they can just go to csl.org and look at a center near you. But we are in historic Morristown, New Jersey, and we are right off of 202, 287, south of Route 80. Very easy to find. And the center offers Sunday celebrations at 11 o'clock every Sunday. We have meditation every Wednesday at noon, and I present the meditation of the heart, the Sufi meditation of the heart. And we have classes. Usually classes happen from September through the spring. We have a summer class that starts July 7th on Thursday nights, and that's a fantastic prosperity class for anybody that wants to expand their idea of prosperity, whatever that is, and cultivate a more prosperous life. And that's going to be facilitated by John and Lucy Pavlik. They're licensed practitioners at our center. And the Science of Mind teaching really is about healing, not healing in the non-traditional sense. It's really healing means revealing our true nature. And so shadow works fits in there because we already inherently and organically and originally are perfect, whole, and complete. But something along the way has caused us to forget this. And so it's not getting something we don't have, but discovering that that already exists within us. And we teach people not what to think, but how, and how to access that essential innocence and that profound wisdom that already exists within us.
Beautifully said. Absolutely beautiful. The teachings are wonderful. I've gone to a lot of different events and just, yeah, great work. And I love that part of that. Sorry?
You'll be teaching a workshop at our center.
That's true. In the fall, I'm going to be doing my shadow shift experience at the center. I'm thrilled to bring it there. It's a great workshop to discover what we have inside of us that we have forgotten. I mean, I love how you said that, because that's really what it is. We have forgotten. We've had these experiences that have shaped us and kind of put us asleep for good reason. And when we rediscover that, and we can have some compassion for why we went to sleep or why we have the strategies we've picked up along the way, when we can really see that we ended up a certain way for a very good reason, for safety, to fit in, to not harm another person. At the end of the day, we really just want to be happy and we want to be loved and we want to feel comfortable and safe. But we have had these experiences and suddenly we forgot really the truth of who we are. And so just, how you put it with your teaching, I say I kind of dust off people's souls, kind of a soul cleaner, because there's just a lot of gook we've accumulated through the years that have confused us about why we are the way we are. And then once we become more conscious of it and really embrace all of who we are in a really healthy way, then life is good. I mean, even just being judgmental, like to be able to say, yes, I can be judgmental. I mean, judgmental has a really bad rap. We all judge. And if we can embrace that we have a judging quality, I mean, we need our judgment. It's just the energy behind it and how we use it. And if we spot it kind of going sideways, we could do something about it, but we have to shine light on it first. And anyway, so yes, absolutely. Coming home to the truth of who we are, it's a blessing. And I've so enjoyed your talks. Anything else that you want to share with our viewers about the Sufi path, the Center for Spiritual Living, anything else? We have a few more minutes and you're welcome to share about anything.
Well, I'm remembering something you said at the beginning, the different shadow work we do. The work that I really, really love, that's very to me, very gentle and very effective is a book by Debbie Ford, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers.
How I started.
I tell people, really make a commitment to go from beginning to end, because in the beginning it's challenging and it makes you face the darkness within you, but it really takes you to the light. And for me, it was actually a humorous experience. I laughed naming my different subpersonalities.
Uh-huh.
It was a way to integrate that sense of wholeness. So that's a book that I highly recommend. And I really love the idea of dusting off the soul. And the Sufis call it the polishing of the heart. And it really is about this, keeping it simple. To me, is like, how can I distill this so that it becomes very simple for me? And then I have clarity, and with the clarity, I can do something. Because sometimes we walk around going, I'm so confused, I'm so lost, I'm so confused. Mm-hmm. The more we say that, the more we become that. So it's really about forgetting, remembering, and that's really the dance of life, right? We forget, we remember, we forget, we remember.
I put in the chat box the book, Debbie's book. I read it so many years ago, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And I have typos because I type like crap. So ignore the typos, but the title is there. Debbie's work is great. She's no longer with us, but she has left us with some pretty amazing bodies of work. She's got a bunch of books out there, and the Ford Institute does some really good work still. It's a very different type of shadow work than Cliff Berry's work, but it's based on the same concept. Definitely different processes. You know, when we work with shadow, we do a lot of psychodrama, and we put people into parts, and it's a different body of work, but it is brilliant. I love Debbie's work, and it's a great book. I'm just gonna underline it, because when we really can spot these aspects of us and have fun with it, because it's like, oh, you know, I'm gonna embrace my bitch, you know, and to say that, or, you know, ooh, I'm a bitch, you know, like, I mean, however you whatever word it is, to take back all these pieces and to understand it. It's a really good beginning book to insights on the shadow. So yes, that's great. And the remembering, forgetting. We're human beings, guys. We need to chill out a little bit. This is quite an experience we're having, and we're not perfect. And just embracing the imperfections. You know, trying to think you have to be perfect. Your imperfection in yourself, the self of you that's imperfect might be in shadow. And so if you can embrace the fact that maybe you're not perfect, can you imagine how light you will feel with that one? So any parting words, Frankie, that you want to share with our guests?
You know, really just for everybody to really discover that life is really short. And we are incredibly privileged to have incarnated now, that we're really called to higher ground. That's why it seems like the world is going crazy. But we're really each called as souls to be in this life and called to higher ground, to make a difference and to come together and to be the good people that we really all are. Goodness is inherent in us, and to access that and to just keep it really simple, but to share it in sweet, simple ways every day.
Words to live by, absolutely. So we're at time. Frankie, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your journey.
You're welcome. I loved it.
Good.
Thank you.
It is great sharing time with you and sharing you. And guys, you know, simplicity and loving yourself so that you can love everyone that you come in contact with. At the end of the day, I think that's really what it's at. Just be present, just relax and stay awake, and then choose consciously how you want to be, because you really can create your own reality. I am amazed at my life. I am blown away by what I've created. And that doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to always be smooth. You know, life is going to happen. And we do have a say in it to a large extent. So blessings to you all. Check out Center for Spiritual Living wherever you are. They're all over the place, but definitely check out Morristown if you are in New Jersey. And again, if you want to find out more about my work, innercritictamer.com. Blessings to you all, and have a wonderful day, and happy solstice. Day late, but happy solstice. Thanks, Frankie.